my name is Alexander Mishulin. I am creative director for Owlcat Games, and I worked on Pathfinder Kingmaker and Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous for last several years.
So, Alexander, I first want to ask you what you learned from Kingmaker that you improved upon and brought over to the sequel.
There are a lot of things we learned when we were doing Kingmaker. Some of them is how huge those games are and how much tools do we need to make the game better, more complete, and to trace out all of the reactivity throughout the game. And we invested in that. We built our internal tools to track all the decisions player have. We have special systems that allows us to see that, to work with that more in easier ways than on Kingmaker. Put quite a lot of effort into testing all of the branches, and they still got some bugs. All of the branches and reactivities were thoroughly tested, but it was far easier than on Kingmaker. And also we tried to build upon, we saw how players like the different options for their characters, how they like character building, and all the different ways you could build a character. So we tried to build up on that and introduced more classes, more archetypes, more varieties, and also mythic paths that kind of combine with all of this. So you can play almost any character you like.
And not to bury the lead here, but like Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, Shacknews, best RPG of 2021, in a very stacked year for RPGs. And I just want to ask, how does it feel?
Thank you. Yeah, really, really grateful and humbled by this award. It's a great honor. RPGs as a genre right now has a kind of renaissance. A lot of games coming out, and it's certainly makes us really proud that Shacknews selected us as a greatest RPG of all that were released in 2021. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And you mentioned like that is a big part of, like, for me myself, like one of my favorite things of Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous is there you get so much choice in this game even before you even begin the quest. Just the sheer amount of race, class, traits, alignment, and then of course, like as you go along the mythic paths, it's astounding how much choice you have in the formation of yourself, even, and then how the world reacts to that. How difficult was it to take all of those choices and make sure that they matter, not just at the point of the choice, but like making sure that those choices matter further down the line?
It is quite a lot of effort. We have a special processes when we, after completing our initial pass when working on a certain chapter, we are returning to that and rereading, editing, and also try to think over what additional reactions will be great. For example, if you are a certain class or for worshipping a certain deity, there could be reactions from a certain characters, and we make those rereads several times during the development process to assemble all of the reactions that will be feeling natural, because in terms of it's not really natural when you are going for say some kind of trader or blacksmith, and I know we are following this obscure deity and I have to react to that. So all of the reactions have to be normal. It's if you are visiting Hell Knights and you are a Hell Knight, then they will react to that. But if you are just an ordinary fighter, it's not a big deal for them. But probably there are some fighters who are all out or just building themselves to be a best fighter ever, and this character will be reacting to that. So we're trying to find the places where it will be natural and put reactions at those places by doing several passes or was already written content.
Elaborate more on that process, Alexander. Can you talk about, there are so many spells and abilities in the tabletop books. Is there anything that doesn't translate perfectly to the game, or something you had to like leave out or work really hard on to get to work in terms of a digital in-game ability or spell?
Yes, we tried to incorporate as many as we could, but there are some feats and abilities and spells that doesn't just translate really well into tabletop. So sometimes we are making, for example, there is a feat that allows you to decide each round whether you want to reroll a saving throw. We are changing that you will be rerolling a savings throw each round, because we don't. A game will be really clunky and slow if we will be asking your permission every time for that. And in terms of spells, there are some spells we really wanted to implement into the game. It was like a list of very powerful spells that we like for example Wish or Limited Wish, and we were discussing for quite a while how we can do that, how we can incorporate it into character development, but understood that to do it properly we have to remove something, for example, from mythics or from other parts of the game that we are keen to do, like for example mounted combat. And in terms of prioritization, those spells got both Wish and Time Stop was on this list, and both of them are quite difficult to implement. So yeah, but probably sometime we'll get to that.
I think one of my favorite things about this game is that you gave players the option, literally on the fly, to switch between turn-based and active battles. What went into that decision? Like, how are there people on the dev team that are a fan of one or the other, and then at some point, like, you just decide, well, why not both?
Oh, it's a great story. Thank you for asking. Initially, it was a huge discussion for Kingmaker, whereas we will be doing real-time and turn-based. And in the development team, there are actually almost similar amount of developers that are for real-time and for turn-based. And you can imagine the great battle in when we were discussing whether it will be real-time and turn-based. When Kingmaker was released, in some time, we saw huge mod, turn-based mod, that was made by Xania. It brought a lot of new players to the game that was playing only with this particular mod. They were playing only in turn-based. And internally, one of our ideas is that when we are making game, we try to make game for every type of player. So if you want to enjoy just the story, we provide story mode for you. If you want to have a very difficult combat, there are a lot of settings how to tweak a combat. We want for you to have fun in our game in any way you want to have this fun. And so we gathered and decided that we omitted our turn-based players out of this fun because we just don't incorporate it. And if we quite a lot of effort based on this mod, we can add them to those players and allow our players to choose whether they want to play turn-based or real-time or just switch on the fly. Because initially the Pathfinder system is turn-based system, and it's quite natural for the system to be played in turn-based. Our particular implementation was more geared to real-time, but we can tweak it, switch something off, and it will be working. So we get to that. It was actually far more difficult than we expected. It's like we spent far more time on doing that. It seemed rather easy, but then one thing led to another, but we made a turn-based mode for Kingmaker, and from the beginning of the Wrath of the Righteous development, we knew that we have to transfer this mode into the Wrath of the Righteous, to continue allowing our players to select between those two. And it's great experience when you're going into the very difficult battle. You just turn it to the turn base. It allows you very precise controls. You can make all the decisions without the hastiness and chaos of real time if you want to. And then you can, for example, go into simple encounter and just turn it back to real time and just slaughter this encounter, and it will be action-packed, visceral, with great feeling, and it's fun to play this way.
Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous also has an extremely sort of interesting side game to it. Maybe not side game, but like, you have this adventure, you have these companions that join you, you have the decisions that you make, but then it also becomes like this crusade, and it becomes a bit more of a strategy game. And it's almost like a second game, and that follows the same story alongside what you've got when you're like on the ground in the isometric experience with your characters. What was it like building these two things alongside of each other?
We like adding a strategy element to the RPG because we tried it in Kingmaker, it worked quite well, and we really enjoyed how it allowed us to put our characters and companions in different perspective, allowing them to make different decisions, sometimes very difficult decisions not about themselves or their friendships, but about the whole kingdom or something that happens on a major scale. So it was quite natural for us to introduce this strategy layer in Wrath of the Righteous as well. And also our developers came back from Nival, and Nival was a Russian company that made Heroes of Might and Magic 5. So we had experience with doing strategy games like this, with battles like this. And at the earliest stages of Wrath of the Righteous development, we thought that this tactical layer will be simpler. We didn't assume we had capabilities and to go into tactical battles like that. We thought it will be something closer to Warlords. So when your battles encounter each other, there will be a automatic resolution to battle when you see how units interact with each other. But then we got into Kickstarter, and it was immensely successful. We're really grateful for our players about that. And we reached a stretch goal when we promised to elaborate our battles into tactical battles. After that, we gathered around and discussed how we can do that, so to make it more interesting, and a lot of features came up, and we started building one thing after another. It's not like completely separate development. For example, when our writers put down a synopsis for a chapter or anything, they have a special list how they want to Crusade to react to that, and there are a lot of points in there. So in here it will be giving additional resources, here there will be some problems with morale in the army, and so on and so forth. And it's really interconnected between main adventure, its narrative, its beats, its combats, its decisions, and Crusade, and it affects each other. But also, not all of our players enjoy the strategic mode, so as with everything else, if we want them to feel comfortable, and if they don't want to play, they can switch it off to automatic, and it will be just an RPG experience for them, and all the strategic decisions will be made automatically by the system.
What comes next in the long run for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, right now we have a season pass, and it includes 3 DLCs. As with Kingmaker, there are different experiences that are tied to main story, and as when we are doing DLCs, we are trying to make some different experiences that are not just similar to original game or just a side story that is attached. We're trying to play around with some ideas, mechanics, make something a little bit more risky that we could not with the base game with the at the whole length. So this time around we want to give players ability to play at a very high level, because when you are finishing Wrath of the Righteous, you just spending when you gain last mythic level, you have very little time until the end of the game, because it's very good narratively. It's the last beat before the final fight, but it doesn't give you opportunity to wield such a power. It just several minutes, probably half an hour until the end of the game. Sorry for spoilers. And we want you to have to play with these powers, to have more fun and more interesting fights, more interactions. So our first DLC will be about that and about giving you this opportunity. And our second DLC is just on the other end of the spectrum. It will be a very adventure about mostly ordinary people that were caught in the midst of demonic invasion into Canterbury, and how they will try to survive this, and how they deal with all the problems. They are not heroes. They're not there to fight demons or stop invasion. They are trying to survive or get to somewhere safe, and it is really difficult for them. It's other spectrum of the story, another point of view, and different experience. And for third adventure in Kingmaker, we had a third DLC called Beneath the Stone Nets, which was a dungeon crawly roguelite experience. When you go into the dungeon, you're leveling up quite fast. You have encounters that are differ every time you are playing this mode. You can try different party combinations. You can try to build your party to the strengths and to the items that you found, and play around that. It was very popular for our players, especially those who enjoy more of battle and mechanics of the game. And we will be doing something similar this time. So it will be also a roguelite experience and focused on allowing you to play around with the different party composition, with different mythics, with different everything, and go through the battles, growing up, and enjoying all of this. There are some story elements as well, so everything there, but idea is to give you dungeon crawly experience.
With the crowdfunding platform, can you give us some pros and cons to using a platform like that for Way of the Righteous? I mean, obviously it's great to get the funding, but you do sometimes have to make a lot of promises and stretch goals to players that take a lot of time to fulfill, because game dev is a long and tedious process.
We are really grateful for all of our Kickstarter supporters. It is the way, our way to make RPG better, because they're really dedicated to the game. We are talking to them quite a lot. We are gathering their feedback, their thoughts about the game. They are playing earlier versions and give us their thoughts about what they didn't like, how, or what they like, how they like a particular character and its arc. In those dialogues, in the suggestions, the ideas, we find a lot of interesting things that eventually goes into the game and allow the game to be better for everybody. So it's not just it's not great for funding. It's also great to give you access to community of a very dedicated people that are eager to give you feedback and information and play through sometimes really difficult and buggy versions of the game, because they're quite early and not completely developed, and give their thoughts and their opinions.
Awesome, man. That's it for me, TJ.
And to cap things off, with Owlcat and Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous having earned the Shacknews Best RPG of 2021, I do want to ask, do you have any kind of acceptance speech you'd like to offer on top of that?
To be completely honest, it's the first time for me, so I don't know how to do it properly. So it will be kind of improvisation. We are really grateful. I'm really grateful to all of our players who are enjoying the game, all of our Kickstarter supporters that gave us a lot of feedback, put their minds and hearts into our game and joined us in the development. I'm really grateful to our entire team who spent countless hours working on the game by making it better experience, and of course for everybody who is enjoying our game, playing our game, enjoying our game. We are really grateful that you choose our game to play, and I hope you are having fun.